sometimes I think that maybe the author of the Gospel of Matthew had a lot of sympathy for us this week. He certainly seems to have had sympathy for the characters that he's writing about. When we listen to the passage about Peter's denial, we know that Peter went out and wept. You were strong, Peter. Oh, I'll never deny you. And Jesus going, man, before the rooster crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. And sure enough, Peter does. And Matthew says, when the rooster crowed, Peter remembered and wept. Peter was sorry for what he'd done. And I think Matthew probably knew about that. And Matthew would understand that we understand about that. We know of those times when we've denied Jesus. Now maybe it hasn't been somebody saying, do you know Jesus? And we said no. But we've had those times when we deny Jesus by our actions. Amen. Or sometimes when we deny Jesus by our lack of action. When we've done something that we know Jesus would not be pleased with. And I think Matthew has some sympathy with us. Because certainly we're like Peter himself. When we think about that, when we remember it, when we realize what we've really done, we're sorry too. And we weep. Matthew even has sympathy for Judas. Of all the Gospels, this is the only one that has this particular story. Now, if you've ever read the first chapter of the book of Acts, we think Acts and Luke were written by the same author. And Luke then tells a story about how Judas died that's completely different from this one. And you listen to Luke's story about how Jesus died, and you have a distinct feeling that Luke thinks, well, Judas got what he deserved. But when we listen to Matthew's version of how Judas dies, I think Matthew had some sympathy with Judas. Because Matthew is specific. Judas repented. Judas repented. He was sorry for what he'd done. He even tried to make it right. He brought back the money. He brings back the money to the temple. He throws it at the feet. And he says, I have innocent blood on my hands. And the officials say, oh, what's that to us? And the problem is, the story of Judas makes us very uncomfortable because we can remember times when we've chosen money over Jesus too. When money has lured us into doing something that we know Jesus would not approve of. And so we're like Matthew. We have this sensation of sympathizing with Judas. I stopped into one of the Sunday school classes, and they were working on the part of the creed about, I believe in the forgiveness of sin. And I said, well, if the conversation slows down, ask yourself this question. Do you think Jesus forgave Judas? That's always a real barn burner of a Sunday school question, let me tell you. Judas was sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry that he had let money get in the way of his relationship with Jesus. And I think Matthew has some sympathy with that. Because Matthew is the only one who says, Judas repented. Judas came back and tried to make things right by giving the money back. Now, maybe not this year, maybe not last year, but there's probably been an Easter season or some other season when you and I let money drag us away from our relationship with Jesus. When you and I let the temptation of money betray what it is we hold true in our faith. And so the reality is, when we listen to the story about Judas, we have a little bit of sympathy, just like Matthew does. After all, we repented. We're sorry. We want to make it right. My guess is that some of you at some point may even have been so depressed that maybe the very thought of suicide crossed your mind too. And that's an incredibly sad situation. And when we learn that somebody's been that sad, we have sympathy with them. And I think Matthew had sympathy with Judas. Year after year, we read the crucifixion story, the passion of the Christ. And we read it again because we understand that Matthew and Mark and Luke and John are all writing not just because this happened 2,000 years ago, but that it keeps happening. We keep having those same situations. Matthew himself probably had a lot of sympathy because he was one of those that at the arrest story it says, and the disciples abandoned him and ran. And Matthew would have been one of those who had left Jesus and run away. We understand about that. We understand when something comes along that looks a lot better than following in the way of the cross. In fact, if we think much about the cross, nearly anything looks better than following in the way of the cross. And so we have a lot of sympathy. We have a lot of sympathy with Matthew. We have sympathy with Peter. We even have sympathy with Judas to some extent. During the season of Lent, we have been studying the Apostles' Creed. I believe. This is our affirmation of faith. And to affirm our faith means I don't just believe it in my head. This isn't just something I think about. It's not like I say, oh, gee, gravity is true. That's not what I believe means when you and I affirm our faith. When we affirm our faith, we are saying we are a part of that. I believe in God the Father Almighty who creates, and so you and I enter into the act of creation. I believe in the Holy Spirit, in the Holy Catholic Church, and you and I understand one another to be a part of that Holy Church. I believe in the communion of saints, and so we understand that we stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us, and we have a responsibility to those who will come after us. We are a part of that church. We are a part of that communion of saints. I believe in the forgiveness of sin, and that's that sin that's so big that only Jesus can handle it. I think Matthew probably had some sympathy even with Pilate. I don't know if you were listening to that scripture, but Pilate's name only gets used a couple of times. The rest of the time, Matthew says, well, the governor did this, or the governor said that, or the governor did some other thing. As if Matthew is saying, well, poor man, he was elected into an office, and he just had to do what he had to do. You know, sometimes elected officials have to vote for something they're not excited about. And sometimes elected officials have to carry out something they don't agree with. And I think Matthew had some sneaking sympathy with Pilate. And I think it's evident because only Matthew has this business about washing hands. Here's Pilate. He says, there's nothing wrong with this Jesus. And he washes his hands. He says, I wash my hands of the situation. This man's blood is not on my hands. I'm just an elected official. Well, in his case, an appointed official. I'm just an appointed official. I have to do what I have to do. I really have no choice here. That's what governments do. Government's number one priority is to keep the peace. Their number one priority is to keep order in society. And if that means stringing up a few Jews, then so be it. Matthew makes out Pilate to be a sympathetic character, but certainly the Pontius Pilate that we study in history was no such sympathetic character. Pilate would as soon crucify you as he would look at you, especially if he thought you had any inkling of taking over the emperor's business. But Matthew's point is, well, this is what the government does. And so the governor does this, and the governor does that, and the governor makes this pronouncement. And the governor hands him over. But you and I don't forget. You and I do not let him hide behind his title, because every week when we affirm our faith, we say, I believe in Jesus Christ, God's only Son, who suffered under Pontius Pilate. And the problem with that, friends, is that you and I, those of us who are American citizens, it's not that there is some government out there. We are the government. You and I have the responsibility to vote. And sometimes you and I hold our nose when we go into the booth and pull a lever or write or punch the computer screen or whatever it is we do these days, knowing that we're unhappy. Oh, I have no choice. And then we try to wash our hands of the situation. No wonder we have sort of a sneaking sympathy with Pontius Pilate. Poor man. He was just doing what needed to be done. He really had no choice. You can't have rights in Jerusalem at Passover. That's just asking for trouble. When you and I say that we believe in the creed, you and I are joining our actions with those of God. The problem is that when we narrate the life of Jesus, sometimes we're narrating ourselves right into acting against Jesus. And when you and I betray Jesus, when you and I deny Jesus, when you and I choose money over Jesus, when you and I try to wash our hands of the government and say, that's somebody else's responsibility, then we have put ourselves in the Passion Week personally. I believe in Jesus Christ, who suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. And the problem, of course, is that in our understanding of joining ourselves with those who have gone before us and those who will come after us, that means that's what we do. We are the ones who betray. We are the ones who choose money. We are the ones who deny. We are the ones who desert and flee. We are the ones who make a pronouncement and then try to wash our hands of the situation. That's interesting when Pilate makes that statement. He says, I am innocent of this man's blood. And the crowd responds, his blood be on us and on our children. Now that is one of the most ironic statements in the entire Bible. It's been misused for centuries now, because it's been misused to say, well, the Jews were responsible for Jesus' death. And the problem is that when those who point at the Jews and say they're responsible, you point one finger and they're free pointing back at you. His blood be on us and on our children. And it is. Now the thing is, when we talk about Jesus' blood being on us, it can mean two things. Because first of all, when Jesus' blood is on us, when Jesus' blood is on our hands, that means that we're guilty. We are guilty of the very sin that took him to the cross in the first place. But you see, God works in mysterious ways so that when we say, the blood of Jesus be upon us and on our children, that's because that's the only thing that's going to wash us clean. That's the only thing that will take away the very sin that put him there in the first place. When the people say his blood be on us and on our children, the reality of the Bible is, okay, it is. You are guilty and you are clean. Matthew made sure we knew that Jesus was alone. The disciples had fled. There's no Mary or John at the foot of the cross in Matthew's gospel. No disciples to be seen. the two who were crucified with him. There's no story of the repentant thief in Matthew. Both of them deride Jesus. Everyone who walks past is mocking him. Oh, he says he's the Son of God. Let him come down off the cross and believe. And just to make sure that you and I know that Jesus felt totally alone, Matthew quotes Psalm 22:1. My God, why have you forsaken me? Now, that's alone. That's alone with a struggle that goes on because the rest of us who want to be there with him have deserted and fled. We've betrayed. We've denied. We've washed our hands. His blood be upon us and upon our children. Okay? It is. Because I believe in Jesus Christ, God's only Son, our Lord, who suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.